There's a world falling apart and a writer trying to put things together with the power of art. Fallen trees get planted back to the ground and destroyed buildings get rebuilt. People buried in the debris get pulled up to surface, and the clustered air is slowly getting cleared, all due to the powers of the writer. This artist walks around the end of the world as if it was just another boring afternoon that could only be entertained, birthing some literature. There are people screaming everywhere, and everything that is built up threatens to come down. The air is freezing cold, but the wind blows only heat waves. The earth shakes everything non-stop, and when it does stop, it's only to come down swallowing entire cities. But as everything comes to an end, that writer keeps doing the job. Nothing to see here, so the writer does nothing, and a lot of artists reacting to the tragedy over there, but this writer doesn't follow the trends. A hummingbird flies among the fiery falling pieces of a satellite, and the simplicity involved in a catastrophe catches the attention of the writer, and something gets created. But as the writing happens, something shows up in front of the current worker, another way of writing that story. Our artist ponders, wonders, unveils, stops, and during these moments nothing gets done. And next time something like this happens, the writer almost forgets about the object in focus to debate on how the object should be focused. So the next time these options pop up again, them all get ignored and the writer only writes. Nothing out here makes the writer feels like he feels after writing. Nothing makes those eyes go within to see inner value like writing a good piece about whatever it is that's been presented out there synchronized with the insights. But that's not all, or at least stops being enough. When the writer writes, the world comes together. All that's distant or too far to be acknowledged is brought closer by the powers of the words. The dark and chaotic world gets clearer and order expands. But now it's not the writing anymore making the artist feel like an artist, but the visions of how to write better. A lot more light starts to come from the insights of how to make improvements. And the fresh winds they bring start to freshen up the surroundings a lot more than the writing itself, and at some point, a vision becomes too strong to not be embodied. The writer sees the person they could be standing there as the world ends, but not expecting anything to happen outside to originate a creation. Then, that imaginary version of the artist sees their own self staring back at them and comes closer with a lot of curiosity shining in those eyes. I remember you, but that new writer only passes by, writes something, bringing people lost in anger back to community, and keeps the walking. Now being followed by the original one that's lost in the analysis of the new version of them, contrasting with the old ones. Looking back, the writer can see the difference. At the beginning, there are old versions writing what they see outside and finding inner peace. But looking forward, the writer that's seen here is one that has eyes to look around, but only creates when finding a piece of the self, like it's just happened. And whenever one of those new creations reaches the external world, the chaos and fear that became rulers actually become invisible, or at least temporarily weakened enough for people to see through the illusion and find the truth that earlier on a writer could only see and recreate. The original writer goes back to the job now, walking around like the old one and taking looks since that's what the universe is for, but now writing only like that one from the vision, creating only when it's a piece of the inner world that gets sent out there instead of an image of the same world. Now this writer feels no reason to stop anymore and writes only when self meets self.